This is the Financially Simple Podcast, a show dedicated to destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner. And now, here's your host, pizza-loving, certified financial planner, Justin Goodbread.
Welcome to the Financially Simple Podcast. This is a finance show for small business owners about money, how it works in our business and our personal lives, and ultimately how we can build wealth to be financially independent. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread, and today is episode number 27. Today's episode is titled, Can I Get a Bid or Not? Have you ever been to an auction or perhaps seen an auction on TV? It's been some time ago, but man, I love going to auctions. I love watching the auctioneer rattle out prices, requesting bids. Man, they talk so fast. I can't even begin to say it, but they often say, I want to get a bid for one. Can I get a bid for two? And they're talking really, really fast. And you'll see the audience members. Somebody will raise their hand or somebody will raise a number, and they're signaling to the auctioneer that, hey, I want to make a bid on that. And they'll raise maybe one finger or two fingers, hold a ring finger down to represent 4 or 5. They'll do all sorts of stuff. They'll wipe their noses at some. I've been to car auctions. I've been to storage container auctions, like whenever a storage container needs to be opened up, like at a warehouse somewhere. I've been to estate auctions when someone has passed away and the family has chosen to auction off the belongings. I've been to all. I love the auction environment. I'm not really good at it. I never win anything that I feel like is a good value, but I do love an auction. In fact, one of my favorite auctions to go to is a livestock auction. And if you've never experienced a livestock auction, you need to do it. It's at least a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I love it. They bring in let's say cows, for example. They'll bring in the cows, and there may be a mama and a baby, or a mama that's pregnant, or maybe it's a herd of cattle. And the auctioneer is going, and you hear the cows mooing, and you're watching all the cowboys in their boots and their hats, and you're like, man, these are a bunch of dumb old country people. Then you start watching and realizing how fast these farmers and the auctioneer is calculating numbers in their head just super fast. It is just a high intensity particular event. That's just a blast. It's fun. I have some really good memories with my dad. We bought some cows in an auction with a man that we grew up with, and we bought our first cows. He bought Elvis, is what we named his big bull, and we bought Priscilla. And we had Elvis and Priscilla, and we did all sorts of stuff for these crazy cows. Ultimately, they ended up making steaks and T-bones, but it was fun nonetheless to go to the auction. When it comes time to sell your company, a private auction is a method of soliciting bids from the potential purchaser of your company. Another method, besides the auction, is just accepting bids or quotes or letters of intent, if you will, from just a smaller group of buyers. So when it comes time to sell, the method of selling the company is as important, if not more important, than many other things. At the end of the day, obviously the goal is to get top dollar for the company with terms that are favorable. They're favorable to your desires. That's the end goal. Last year, I had a local East Tennessee business owner call me. He was provided my name somewhere. He was calling me for twofold. The first one was he needed help preparing his business for sale, and more importantly, his personal finances. That's what he's ultimately called me about. I was like, Justin, I need help. I'm going to sell my business, and I'm not sure I'm ready to sell it, man. He had never dealt with formal investing, if you will, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. He never dealt with that. And my name was provided to him by a very trusting CPA and attorney, one of the locals here. And he called and said, Justin, I really need your help. So-and-so recommends you highly. Can you help me? And we began talking, and we were starting the process about how to get the business ready to sell and himself ready mentally to sell the business. And I'd just began crunching numbers about a week after our initial meeting when he called me out of the blue, unexpected. And he called me, and he had this just anticipation, this excited voice, and he's filling the airways. And he's going, dude, I just got an offer. I'm like, dude, what? He goes, yeah, man, I just got an offer. I'm like, really? How much is it? He goes, it's like $3 million. Now, that may not sound like a lot to you, but for this country boy who had barely got out of high school, $3 million was like winning the lottery. I mean, this guy was like super stoked, right? I mean, he's sitting here going, $3 million, this is more money than I ever had in my life. And then he asked the question, dude, should I take it or ask for more? The buyer said they only have like 7 days before they're going to walk. I've got to make a decision now. He had not slept in 2 days. He finally, this attorney said, call Justin, what's your numbers look like? And this particular seller, man, he was overly excited, as you can imagine. And he really didn't know how to answer, is this a good deal or not? So I really don't want you to be in that particular situation, if you will, a situation to where you're asking, is this a good deal? This buyer wasn't prepared for the particular sale. Obviously, we've been working through this episode series, or these series of episodes, I should say, on how to get you prepared to sell your business. This seller had not done that. So I asked the question, I said, have you ever considered an auction? He goes, well, I don't know. Ultimately, the seller ended up accepting the offer. Now, do I think he could have gotten more? Yeah, I do. But he used the old adage on me, which I've used many times. He goes, dude, a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush, so I would get another $1 million. Who gives a flying flip? I'm happy. Let's retire. All right, cool. But that may not be you. So let's deal with what is an auction and how does it work and should you use it? And then we're going to deal with, well, what happens if you don't want to use an auction? How do you go about the sales process? So how does an auction work? Well, first you identify potential buyers because the likely selling price of the business, the buyer is more likely to be a business entity. So typically when you're working with an auction, you're dealing with a lot more of a higher valued business. And many times you're dealing with a business entity when you're working an auction. And many times M&A, if you go back to our power team, we were talking about a business broker, a mergers and acquisitions advisor, or investment bankers. Many times your mergers and acquisition team, then they can recommend to you, hey, look, let's look at an auction. And the reason why they're doing that is because you're more than likely going to identify more buyers that way. Now, after you identify the buyers, contact's going to be made and you're going to give them your pitch book. They're going to go say, hey, are you interested in buying the business? And there's a whole approach that your M&A team will work with. And I'm just going to say M&A, mergers and acquisitions advisors. The same can be said for your investment bankers. They may use the same process. But the buyers will be informed of the auction process and the steps of the process. And then after executing a confidentiality agreement, agreeing that, hey, we're going to show you some data points here and showing all the financial qualifications, the buyers are given a chance to report about the business, basically disclosing its identity, giving the more details about the business and its finances. That's the whole idea. The buyer will then be asked to present an offer or an indication. The technical term is called an indication of interest. That's typically the term that's used out there in the M&A world. And this indication of interest will flow in from various buyers, and it's going to provide a various range of price. So they may say, look, I'm willing to offer you between $2 million and $4 million, or between $10 million and $15 million. And it's going to give you a range of price based on what the buyer would say. So that's the third step in it. Now, the buyers willing to offer the highest price, they're typically the ones you begin working with. And as you're entertaining their Q&As or questions and everything, they're going to ultimately present a higher or a final offer. And as they present the final offer, at that point is whenever you, the seller, and the buyer's team begin interacting a little bit more detailed. They're going to want to meet you. They're going to want to look underneath the hood of the car, if you will. They're going to want to walk around and kick the tires. And ultimately, the chosen buyer, the person who you've ultimately said, yes, I want to sell it to this particular person, now you're going to enter in the final negotiations. And you're going to see if you can reach the terms that is advantageous for both sides. So that's kind of the way a private auction works. It's not like the cow auction I went to. It's not like you would see on TV like in a car auction or an estate auction. You really don't have a bunch of people in a room standing up and raising their hands bidding on your business. No, it's a little bit more controlled than that. Now, like I said, mergers and acquisition advisors will utilize this particular method a lot.
You are listening to Financially Simple, destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner.
So that may lead you to the question, well, should I use an auction? You know, there's a number of reasons why you should use an auction if you're in a set price range. And we're going to get to, do you qualify or when should you use it? But one of the reasons why you should use an auction is if your particular business is working to where you're trying to drive up the price by having multiple competition. So whenever you're working in an auction environment, if you got 2 or 3 people volleying for the business and they give you their initial intent and it says, hey, I want to buy your business for $2 million. And all of a sudden, another bid comes in for $4 million and another one comes in for $6 million. You could go back to the 2 million people and say, hey, look, we've gotten a bid for 4 and a bid for 6. Are you interested in this? And then you can push the price up a little bit. If you pull it out of the auction area, there's a whole company that was in the late 90s and 2000, lendingtree.com. If banks compete, you win. And that was the same theory. If you get multiple banks competing for your mortgage, then you would end up with a lower rate. And adverse to that, if you get multiple businesses volleying for your particular business, you potentially can end up with a higher price. Now, again, I'm going to lean on the M&A advisors or the investment banker. They're the ones who are going to guide you through this. Now, one of the biggest keys, though, that they're going to be looking at is you need a plan in place which outlines the timing of the auction. The auction works best for you when you, your mind, your person, your business, the market, and the money supply aligns. That's whenever you get the highest multiples for a business in an auction environment. Now, again, I realize that's like asking the planets to align for you. But that's often where the sweet spot is. That's where you typically will see the highest valuations occur in the market in the world there. It's for this reason that I start telling clients that if you're planning on selling the business, you need to start about 10 years out. And like those calves at that cattle auction I went to, you're looking at me like that calf looks at that new gate. You're cross-eyed going, boy, have you lost your mind? No. See, if we plan on selling the business, then we need plenty of leeway. We need plenty of time between where we're currently at and where we're ultimately trying to be, because you never know. You may say, hey, look, I want to sell the business in 2020, but in the year 2019, the planets may align for you. And if you're not ready and prepared, you may miss out on the planet alignment. So now your mergers and acquisition advisor, your broker, your whole team will end up weighing your option. They're going to tell you when and how you should go about this. But you can receive multiple offers. It makes a lot of sense to use an auction. So when should you use an auction? Well, if you have a product or a service in high demand, you may want to consider using an auction. If you don't want to put your price of your business out there, you say, hey, look, I really don't want to go in and say my business is worth $4 million. I don't want to negotiate against myself. That's why you may want to use an auction, because you're really not saying my business is worth 4. You're saying I'm willing to give it to the highest bidder for what they think it's worth with no cap. That's why you would use an auction. A third point, maybe there's a strategic buyer out there in the marketplace who you know of that's interested in your business, and they're buying up businesses just like yours. But yet you're going to need some financial buyers to kind of force them to the table and get their pocketbook a little looser. You may use an auction for that. Many times strategic buyers do not want their competition to receive the business sale. Just don't want it to happen. So many times you can force them into a position using an auction. Another reason why you may want to use an auction is if you're already receiving offers without ever marketing in the company. Like this individual called me last year just out of the blue. Hey, I got an offer. I hadn't even started marketing it. He may have been a candidate for an auction. Another reason is if you're in a high niche business. If your business is one that is just in high demand, you may want to use an auction. What if you have a superstar bench? I mean, you've assembled the Mac Daddy of all team players. You have the dream team that we often talk about from the Olympics. Was it 1987? I can't remember. The dream team, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and so forth. So, I mean, it was a good team. Maybe you've built that within your employees. That may be an auction scenario. But truth be told, many times auctions take place when a business is selling for $5 million to about $1 billion. That's what's called middle market. You're not in the small business. Like we talked about in episode, I think it was 3 or 4. Small businesses are typically $0 to $5 million. Middle market's between $5 million and $1 billion, and $1 billion plus is big business. So those are a few reasons why you may consider an auction. Again, lean on your M&A advisor. We spent a long episode on why you would want to use them. Here's why. It could be a big deal. Now, in opposite of that, or contrary to that, you may want to go in and not use an auction at all. You may say, look, I have no desire. I've seen many, many companies sell without the use of a private auction. I personally, all 3 of my companies which I have sold, was without the use of an auction. So I personally have never experienced this. I think at some point it'd be fun. I think I would like to do it. Maybe nerve-wracking for me, but I think it'd be a good experience. But all of mine were on the private sale. There was no auction involved. Many smaller companies just will sell without an auction. The process is a little different. Instead of going to an auction where you're trying to pitch multiple people and getting people from all over the world, globe, region, etc., whenever you're not using an auction or a private sale, you're typically going to only pitch a few people. You're just not dealing with the numbers. You may end up advertising it like through a brokerage house, using a business broker, but you're still only going to pitch a few people. So there's a couple of reasons why not to use an auction. If you don't have enough interest or you have very few buyers, that's a reason. If you don't want the sale public. So in an auction environment, many times it's very public. But in a private sale, you can keep the business name anonymous for a while if you need to. I have actually kept my businesses where no one really knew about it except me and my family. No one knew. So you can sell a business without customers even knowing you're selling a business. It can be done. If you or your buyer is not comfortable with that auction process I just laid out, don't use an auction. Or maybe you don't have a strategic buyer. Maybe you're in a business that's not in high demand, but you've just got a good bread and butter business. I had a client this last year who purchased an auto repair company. It's a solid business, very solid. It's like a $5 million a year revenue standpoint, $800,000 a year EBITDA. Nice business, okay? But there was no auction involved. It was a private sale, and the buyer did great on it. You're like, Justin, $5 million and only $800,000 EBITDA. Some of you caught that. Yeah, there's a lot of cogs in that particular business because of the way it works, and so we backed out the cog to make the numbers work. So where does that leave us? You have the option to sell your business through an auction environment, a private auction, which we talked about that. Or you have the option to sell your business on the private market to where there really isn't a request for bids, if you will. Where I'm going to leave it at is this. You've at least been introduced to the concepts. Now's when the time you're going to talk to your mergers and acquisitions advisors, your business broker, or your investment banker. They're the ones who are going to give you the ultimate guidance. They're the ones who are going to know what's best for your particular situation. Truth be told, no matter which way you go, somebody may hit me up on this one, but this is just the way I view it. There's probably a few buyers who are interested in your company, regardless of which direction you head. You just got to figure out what's the best way to present your company to those few buyers. And then, which particular process is going to get you the highest bid, ultimately trying to win you the highest paycheck for your particular business. So guys, that's it for episode 27. Like I always say, life is hard, life is complicated. Money, business, it doesn't have to be. Let's continue to make your lives, and my life at least, financially simple. Y'all go out and make it a great day.
You have been listening to the Financially Simple podcast. The information in this show is for informational purposes only. This show is not investment advice. Instead, seek help from a competent financial advisor. Justin Goodbread, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Heritage Investors, a registered investment advisor.